Welcome back, everyone. So, I think I have a special episode today that's going to be the start of something a little interesting. I don't know if you can see what's on the table here, but let's check it out. First of all, you've seen this before. The Motiv Purple Tank. You know, it's a purple ball. Any purple urethane ball is going to be compared to the famous purple ball. But let's hold off on that for a second, because I never got a chance to test that purple ball, and I've been asked a ton of times to test it, and I just thought, hey, you know, it's getting old and people aren't all that interested, so, but it seems like you all are still interested in that. So anyway, I do have something else which we recently tested. The Roto Grip Rubicon UC3. Well, this is a new pearl urethane ball, if you can call it urethane-ish, I guess. If you've seen the tests, you know what I'm talking about. So it doesn't really come off as true urethane, but I figure this ball's got to come into play when we're talking urethane balls, since it's the latest and greatest thing from Storm. But now, look at what we have here. Well, there isn't much to show you except Purple Hammer. We finally got our hands on one of these. So, basically, I'm introducing you to a urethane shootout I'm going to do. So the fun thing about, what we do here is, you guys know I'm independent. I'm not on staff with anybody. Some manufacturers help us out, some don't. But I think it's about time that we had an opportunity to test out, first of all, what a lot of people consider the GOAT in terms of, modern urethane ball reaction, which is the Purple Hammer. Obviously, I did not test it when EBI was manufacturing this. So this is the Brunswick version. It is what it is. This is what's available. So this is what I'm testing. And, we have tested, like I said, these other two balls here. The Purple Tank, and that is a very strong urethane ball. This is a solid urethane ball. And I guess, it's going to be interesting for me to finally get an idea of how these balls, roll down the lane. Because, look, at the end of the day, these are all some urethane. I think from what we've seen so far, you can all expect that, I would say these two, the Purple Tank and the Purple Hammer, are closer to a true urethane ball reaction as compared to, say, the UC3. And, if we just look at what's inside of these balls, right? So, the hammer, right? I got specs here. I think there's always a little bit of differentiation between the 14 and 15 pound balls, but that's fine. They're usually pretty close. So the idea is a very high RG, like around 268 or whatever, and a very low differential at 0.013, right? And the Purple Tank has a slightly lower RG at 257 or thereabouts, and 0.018 on the differential. I tend to spend more time on the differentials anyway. So, the differentials are pretty close. This is a little stronger. And so maybe theoretically a little more flare. I don't know. I mean, 20 and 13 are really close at the end of the day. So, you really kind of have like a solid versus pearl urethane, and obviously with Motiv's implementation versus Brunswick's implementation through the Hammer brand. And then of course you have the Rubicon UC3 from Roto Grip. And I have to say, this ball is, I think, at least in my estimation, quite different from this one. So I expect it to be different from this as well. But I do think a head-to-head test is going to give us some ideas. But what I can tell you is I have used the UC3 on the 43-foot PBA Earl Anthony pattern, for example. And the UC3 looks more like a mid-control ball, which, if you guys know my arsenal building technique, that puts it like right in the middle of the bag. And that might be a little confusing for urethane. Well, honestly, it was confusing to me, but throwing the ball, it behaves that way. I mean, it doesn't behave like, I'm curious to see, say, how something like this, which I never thought about. I mean, even though this purple tank is pretty strong urethane ball, I never thought about bringing a ball like this and this type of reaction to something like Earl Anthony, although maybe I should, because this ball looked great on it, to be honest. So, we're going to see, but I mean, just continuing the theme about specs, so we had the differential 13 here, 020 here. Now, the Rubicon, right, this is a little different story, right, because this is a 052 differential, and it's also a sort of mild asymmetric at like 0.001 or 0.011. And that really makes this, I think, a different beast, and that might be why it sort of lends itself, somehow this combination of pearl, urethane-ish, and asymmetric core lends itself to being something more than what I would just look at as urethane. And I mean, you guys, you know my game. I'm pretty much your standard middle-of-the-road tweener, and I would never really, and as a lefty, even though I like to have control shapes, but urethane tends to be over control and kind of doesn't do enough. And then, kind of sometimes because of the low flare, really changes the shape of the pattern, lengthens the pattern unnecessarily, which yields less hit. I don't need less hit. I want more hit. So I want consistency, but I still want hit. And so, we'll see. I mean, that's the benefit of having something like this, where you could drill it to flare. Like UC3, you can drill it to flare and have less impact on the pattern. These balls, really, no matter how you drill them, they aren't going to flare much. So it's going to be really interesting to check it out. And if you saw my two-hand test, I actually love the UC3 shape for my two-hand game. So easy to control, and I thought one of the better hits, better drives through the pins. It didn't quite, because I'm rev dominant, because I don't have as much speed, so I'm probably about the same, well, maybe a little less speed than my one-handed, but a lot more revolutions, and then that turns my game into a rev dominant game. And what I found is, you'd think control helps that, but honestly, control where the ball is not clean tends to lead to weak hits. Like, I found the weaker hits with the tank two-hand, even though it's really easy to control, relatively speaking. It kind of drained a little bit of energy. I don't know how this is going to look like. This is a solid, like I said, this is pearl, this is pearl. So what I'm going to do, obviously, is, drill this ball up. You've seen me throw these two, but I'm going to take them out, get a session where, let's see who's the best out there. So yeah, we will be back with that test, and then we'll talk about it through there and see where we land. the battle of the urethane balls.